Hello and welcome back to Pass the Torch, Legacies in Jewelry. My name is Nadja de Van Diest, and I figured every now and then I would just go ahead and throw in a solo episode and kind of expand upon the concept of this platform, if you will. I have been in the jewelry industry since I was 20 years old, so 6, almost 7 years ago now. And I made the pivot from working in sales, high luxury sales, to wanting to work at the bench, which everyone called me crazy for. So many people told me not to do it. Yet here I am because I love it. And I think it's important to do what you love. That being said, hands down, it has been the hardest transition, harder than I ever could have imagined. Let's just say that. Building a shop for the first time, I had no clue what I was getting myself into. And honestly, there wasn't anyone really talking about it or talking about like if there was a framework for it or anything like that. So I just want to take this episode to do that. I just went through it. And very often when I ask my mentors who have had their shops for 30 plus years or something like that, and I ask them like, where do I start? They're like, I don't know. I did this so long ago. And the reality is I just built my shop and I just did it. I just went through it. I understand it now. I understand what it took. I understand what it financially cost. And so I'm going to break down all of that. I hope that, whether or not you're a hobbyist or you're just starting out, I love my shop. I think it's very functional. I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's anything crazy. But it was hard to get here and I did have a lot of help. And so for those who don't have access to the phenomenal jewelers that I have access to, my hope is to offer a little bit of a bridge to close that gap. So the very first thing I want to get into is some of the books that I have, because I have a lot of books. And I just think if you're just starting out, that's where you start. That's where you make your investment, because you can read a lot of this and understand it conceptually before you kind of get into, okay, what do I actually now need to invest in? Because the reality is a functional professional shop, right? We're talking about like a $50,000 barrier to entry. A lot of hobbyist shops, good hobbyist shops, I think can be made right around that like $7,000 to $10,000 mark. And I'm just being realistic. I know people are gonna get mad at me for saying that that's how much it cost. Middle of the road shop, like where I'm at, anywhere between 15 to 25,000. That's just me being really, really honest on what it takes to just have what you need to build what you're trying to build. And so before you go down all of that, right? Before you do all of that, read the books, because you will start to figure out what you're interested in and what you're not before you go, tool shopping. And it's important to also understand what you're looking for. So the books will talk about those various tools so that you can go in with an education and so that you're not ripped off, to be honest. Good news and bad news. Good news is that a lot of jewelry tools have kind of been the same for 200 years. You really don't have to buy things brand new. In fact, I would say 90% of my shop is used tools. And that's how I've been able to keep the cost really low, or, relatively low, right? Because it's all relative. I have purchased pieces from jewelers who are retiring, from jewelers who are friends, from mentors who were just giving away old stuff that they didn't need anymore or they had upgraded. And so that's the good news, right? Nothing needs to be brand new except for maybe if you're a hand fabrication jeweler. In my experience, don't think it's wise to buy a used rolling mill. That's kind of the only one that I'm like, buy it new. And that one sucks because it's so expensive. I think like the minimum is probably like $1,000 on those. And that hurts. That hurts. Just because the rollers can get used and abused and you don't know what you're buying. If you're buying it online, which is the platform that they're mainly sold on. And it's just kind of one of those things. If the two rollers are warped, if they have the tiniest little kink or anything like that, it just sucks. It's an expensive purchase. Either way you cut it, and mine is over there. It's a Pepe one. And it's just a bullet you gotta bite. But if you don't have to buy a rolling mill brand new and you have found one from a trusted source, make sure to recalibrate it. That's the thing, is like so many people don't realize that their rolling mills are warping their metal. So like if you roll your metal through and it's starting to curve, you can reset your own rolling mill. You do not have to take it to a specialist or to have someone fix it. You can just take off the gears, reset it. There's a million YouTube videos on it and how to do that properly. You can do it yourself. You don't need to go pay someone. Just take care of it. So if you find one in that kind of condition where it's warping the metal a little bit, but you don't see anything wrong with the rollers, snag it. That's a good deal. So, okay, couple books I want to get into. First and foremost, this one here, The Jeweler's Bench Reference by Harold O'Connor. It's on its like 7th republication or something like that. I liked this one with the black cover. I think it also has a green or blue cover. Because I think this one is the most updated. This should be your first purchase, hands down. This is really helpful in regards to just metallurgy and like what is the metal doing and why is it doing that. A lot of like really helpful tables, like ring blank sizes, all of that stuff. That's going to be your number one go-to, right? Like soldering temperatures. This has a lot. It's a small book. You can carry it with you. I carry it in my purse. Literally, I realize I'm, a lady and I carry a purse, but this is in my purse pretty much at all times. Okay, next book. The Complete Metalsmith. This is a little bit more in-depth version of this, but it has more tools and basic foundations versus like where this is like charts and numbers and just like melting temperatures. So this has an in-depth diagnosis of tools and what they're good for and all of that. Worth the purchase. If you only buy 2 books, right? It should be these 2. That's how you get started. This one is The Complete Metalsmith by Tim McWright. Hands down, it's got illustrations. Lovely. Okay. After that, 2 books that I think are super necessary and very useful. These 2. And no matter where I look, I cannot find this copy. I borrowed this from Brady Mesh and I need to give it back to him. And I tried to find it to buy my own copy and I can't. It is Safety Solutions by MJSA. They're fantastic. They're a great organization who connects mentors to apprentices. They are also a fantastic resource. So this is a safety guide. You want to get some sort of safety guide. This is a dangerous profession. You can super hurt yourself. So this just kind of helped me. I read it when I was setting up my shop in regards to what I needed to consider with airflow and gases and acids. This is important. The other one, which is readily available, I think I got this one off of Rio Grande. The Eco Jewelry Handbook. Because all of this is so scary and like real, you can really, really hurt yourself very easily. I followed Brady's advice to just have the cleanest possible shop I could. And my shop could also still be cleaner. Him and I just had a conversation the other day about how toxic denatured alcohol is for your lungs when you're using fire coat. And so, I'm going to try to find a substitute for denatured alcohol so that I don't have, lung cancer in 30 years. The Eco Jewelry Handbook. This is great. This goes through like all the modern chemicals and products, stuff that you buy regularly from all the distributors, and it will tell you its safety rating. It will tell you if there's a better alternative. It will tell you if there's a cleaner alternative. And I have purchased the alternatives and found that they work just as well. So why bring super dangerous chemicals into your shop when you don't need to and you have an alternative? Sometimes the hard thing is sometimes it is just a little bit more expensive, but like particularly with the pickle, that's the first thing that's coming to mind. The generic pickle and the eco pickle, it's probably like $10 more or something like that. And if it's healthier for you, and when you do this full time and it's like constantly the fumes are just in the air and you're constantly around it, you want this. Okay. This book I haven't actually delved into yet, and it's really, really old, but it's Modeling in Wax for Jewelry and Sculpture. To be honest, I have yet to find the love of wax carving and casting. I think I am a hand fabrication jeweler. I just think it's better. But I have everything to wax carve, and I thought I would love it. I really, really did. And my hope is that I eventually, grow to love it. But I even have a second bench because you're supposed to keep your metal separate from your wax. So I have two benches for that reason, to actively like carve wax and do wax carvings. And there's some things that are very difficult to fabricate that are pretty easy to make in wax. And so that's why I've kind of, purchased this book and have a whole setup. I have a wax pen and the denatured alcohol, little candle, and the wolf tools and all of that. I would love to love it. I think I'm just a purist in that capacity where I just want to fabricate. Like, I just want to literally make it from scratch. I know it's harder. I know it's not as efficient. I don't care. I don't care. I just enjoy it. Okay, this one. This is a gold mine, no pun intended. The Theory and Practice of Goldsmithing by Professor Dr. Erhard Brevpol. This was originally written in German. And if you know anything about German gold work, their goldsmiths are phenomenal. And this was only recently translated, like in the last 10 years. And if you read this and you go through it, you will be so far ahead of so many jewelers who have been doing this for like 20 years, because it just goes into the depths. Your knowledge and your understanding of what the metal can do and its limitations will be so much more well-rounded because you read this book than anyone else. So like, truly, if someone's just figuring it out on their own and they don't have access to this book, it's going to take them a lot longer to figure it out. This is a gold mine. This is precious. It's an expensive book. You can buy it used on Amazon. Worth every penny. Okay, for the fun stuff, right? Creative metal forming. This one's fun. This one belongs to Todd Reed, and I need to give it back to him. But I've been having so much fun going through it. So Todd, yes, I still have your book. Yes, I will get it back to you. I'm using it for right now. Thank you. He'll laugh at that. He'll think that that's fun. But okay, so this book is great because when you're an apprentice like me and you're just figuring stuff out, you can do this with just a sheet of copper, right? Like, you can take a sheet of copper, and this has so many different chapters on cool shapes and forming that you could just go through and have fun. And that kind of references a little bit of what Michael Boyd was talking about in last week's episode, that if you just play, if you allow yourself to play, you don't have to have a finished product. This is the perfect book for that. It just kind of helps you, it helps guide your exploration in a way that makes really cool things. So I enjoy this book when I am in a silly, goofy mood. Okay, all right. Oh, okay, this is a really great one as well. Introduction to Precious to Sorry, words are hard. Let me try that again. Introduction to Precious Metals, Metallurgy for Jewelers and Silversmiths by Mark Grimwade. Okay? This one's great. I actually haven't delved into this one super deep yet. I think I've only read like 2 chapters, but this came highly recommended. And again, this is going to talk about that metallurgy, and it's going to go into cell structure, right? So this is going to really help you understand on a molecular level what is happening to the metal when you do various things to it, when you roll it, when you put it in acid, when you heat it, all of those things. That's really important. And the more you understand that, the better product you're going to have, especially when you're talking about making things that are supposed to last forever, right? These are heirlooms. These are really, really precious, wonderful pieces that we have the honor of making. I want to make sure it lasts. That's also kind of why I'm obsessed with hand fabrication, and I'm having a really hard time appreciating CAD and casting. Whoops. Okay. All right. This is the big kahuna. This is, if you get through these and you're so super serious about this and you want to make this your career, Alan Riviere. Alan Riviere is a gentleman who I would love to have on this podcast. Alan, if you're listening, I would love to be in touch. I would love to interview you. Alan used to have the Riviere Academy out in San Francisco. He has since retired, and though he still is super active in the jewelry community, is awesome. There is a Facebook page called I Make Professional Jewelry, or Making Professional Jewelry, something along those lines. And it is all about this textbook. So it is a community of people who own this book, who are going through making really high-end pieces, and it's an awesome community because people post about like questions that they have or difficulties that they're having, and it's such a supportive community that people will answer, right? And they'll very often reference this textbook in their answers as a way to kind of just grow right? And continue doing this art that we love. So, Professional Jewelry Making: A Contemporary Guide to Traditional Jewelry Techniques, Alan Riviere. This is it, right? Like, this is, you do this and you do these other books, you're in good standing. I am self-pacing through this book, and what I've been doing with my mentor is I will go through a chapter, I'll work on something, then in my own shop, then bring it up to him for review and he will give me feedback. That has been super helpful. That has been a game changer. This is it, right? Like, this is the book. Okay, I'll shut up about books now. When you are a brand new person who's interested in jewelry, what is the very first thing that you're like, I need that? It's a bench. Benches. Benches are brutal because they are so expensive, just brutally expensive. And the one I have back here, this really large, beautiful one, is from AutoFry, and it is the really nice one. And I was really lucky to purchase it secondhand. So I didn't pay the full, whatever, $3,000 or $4,000 that this bench costs. And then the other one I have over here, this wax bench that I have brand new, also $1,000. I purchased it secondhand. I paid way less than that, right? So these are hands down the hardest things. Shipping is so expensive if you buy them brand new. But if you can't purchase a bench secondhand, you have another option, right? Like the good news is that these are just like oak or like really, really tough hardwood, and you can build it yourself. Or there's a gentleman named Chapin Diamond who gave me the brilliant idea. Before I found both of these secondhand, I actually went out and sourced an old oak roll top desk, right? And those are brilliant because they have like all the little drawers, up top, and they've got the big heavy drawers down below. All I needed to do was lift it and cut out the like curve in your workstation. And then I could have attached a GRS, whole pin station, and it would have worked great. It just so happened that I didn't end up doing that, and it's still taking up space in my garage. So if anyone needs a roll top desk, please contact me if you want to turn it into a bench, because it is a fantastic, like solid wood, and it would just make a great bench. But now I have like the fancy ones, and they're here, and that was just a whole other project that I just never got to. So if anyone needs a roll top desk, I do believe it is actually one of these first few books that I pulled up. It's either this one, The Complete Metalsmith, or I think it's this one, The Jeweler's Bench Reference. I think The Jeweler's Bench Reference actually has dimensions for how to build your own bench, and you can use that in reference to the roll top desk, and you can build your own bench. And there are so many roll top desks being sold for literally free. People are so sick and tired of that design. There are so many free ones, or ones for like $50 on Facebook Marketplace. Please do not go and buy a big expensive bench if you simply can't afford it, because you can make do without it. Trust me, you can make do without it. Okay, couple things that you'll need next. Pickle, right? So pickle pot, it's the acid to clean off your metal after anything. I pickle every piece, like every step. Crock pot. Crock pot is your best friend. However, there is a trick to not damage your crock pot. If you put water in the crock pot and then take glass beakers and submerge them, and then put the acid in those glass beakers and just allow the water around it to heat it instead of the acid coming in direct contact with your crock pot, you can have multiple different types of acid going at one time. And two, it's going to make your crock pot last for like 10 years, and you don't have to replace one every year, which I have already broken like 3. That's the game changer. It allows you to just keep things moving and keep them super clean. And I love that. Pickle. Or sorry, not pickle. We just did pickle. Patina. Sorry. Pickle patina. Patina, I use the chunks. I like the chunky liver sulfur. I don't like the paste or the gel. I just submerge that. I just got a hot plate and I have an old pot, and I just submerge, those chunks into the water. I get it warm ish. And the biggest thing with patina, this is what people don't realize, is you have to heat the piece first. You can do that multiple ways. You can put it on the hot plate and then transfer it over and allow it to just get warm. Or you can steam it. If you have a steamer, that will get the piece decently hot enough so that the patina actually adheres. If you cold patina your pieces, it doesn't stay as long. in my experience. Everyone has a different experience. I bought my steamer secondhand from a gentleman who had passed away, and his widow was selling his stuff. So that's how I got that. I also found that ultrasonics are really accessible when they're not jewelry ultrasonics. My stepdad is, I point this way because he lives in that direction, is an engineer, and he did a lot of work with, various prototypes and stuff, and he would always have to ultrasonic them. And so I just had a kind of collection of his old ultrasonics, and I looked it up, and they're literally the same. They do the same thing. I don't care if someone's like, you have to have a jewelry ultrasonic. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can get an engineer's ultrasonic, and it's just as delicate, and it works just as well. When it comes to magnetic tumblers, I love them. However, I find that I bought one really early on in my career, and I literally have yet to use it. I own it. It's like 10 feet away from me, over to the side. Barely use it. So not sure if that's worth the investment. It wasn't a super expensive machine to begin with. It's off of Amazon, and I think I bought it used, but you don't need it. If you have a flex shaft, you can do a similar texture, and I don't know. I haven't found that I use it a ton. It's just, the little magnetic elements with soapy dishwasher, dish soap and water to clean off your pieces or give it a finish or anything like that. I just don't use it. I'm looking around my shop to find what I talk about next. Drill press, mini bench jeweler's drill press. I use that all the time. I love it. I think it's really helpful, especially when you're just starting out stone setting. It really helps you keep the drill straight, obviously, because it's straight down. You eventually need to know how to do that by hand, but little bench jewelers, drill press, definitely worth it. If you can find one secondhand, even better. DAP tools can get really expensive, especially if you buy them from AutoFry. I found a set on Amazon. It was like $100. Totally worth it. You can do so much. You do not also need a massive anvil. I love big anvils, especially because I'm hand fabricating. But if you're just starting out, you can just get a little one, like literally like a couple inches. And it comes with, some of the sets on Amazon, and those are great. Those are awesome. But when it comes to ring sizing equipment, I got everything from one source, because ring sizing is the most confusing and frustrating thing when you have differing sizers, right? So if your sizers are not from the same place, they could be slightly off. And if your mandrels are not from the same place, they could be slightly off. It's even the ones that say that they're perfectly calibrated are not. Proceed with caution is what I would just check everything. Like when you get a set, if it matches, then you're good to go in regards to the ring structure or the sizers or the mandrel or anything like that. But I got all of mine from Durston. I just kind of bit the bullet on that because I was like, I just want them to be the same, and it's like a one-time purchase. So I already said I got my rolling mill from Pepe. I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube and you can see my face. You will see that I have some sponges on either side of the rollers. I took those kind of big yellow sponges from Home Depot, and Brady helped me cut them a little bit. And then we put 3-in-1 oil on it. And the biggest thing for care for a rolling mill is making sure that the rollers are not left touching each other so that they don't imprint on each other and make a divot, if you will. So you don't want to keep it closed. The biggest thing when you're not using the rolling mills to let the slack, let there be slack between the rollers, and keep it lubricated. So keep 3-in-1 oil. I know it smells, to some people it smells bad. I don't mind it, but keep the 3-in-1 oil on there so that every time you roll it, it just kind of gives it a fresh coat, and that will make your rolling mill last a really long time. Okay. Let me take a breather. Let me think. Microscope. Let's talk about my microscope for a second, because this is widely debated. You do not need an expensive microscope. You can get one, and they're awesome. They're fantastic. You do not need to go and spend $5,000 on a microscope, which is normally what they go for the average ones, and then they go all the way up to 10. I think some of the really nice Leica ones, they're pricey. Engineers' microscopes are the same. There are so many engineering companies or startups that buy microscopes, and I got this tip from Chapin Diamond. You can just go when they're liquidating. They're the same. They do the same thing. You do not need, now you need to be, sorry, let me preface. You need to be careful because it's your eyes that we're talking about. And if you have something that is poorly made, you could, if you're looking through it for 50 hours on a single project. You could seriously damage your eyes if you're not careful. You need to get something that is at least some degree of quality, right? But engineers, they have good microscopes, and you can get, an Acrobat stand separately, and you can attach that engineering microscope to it, and it will do the exact same thing. I bought a jeweler's microscope because I wanted a trinocular option, but same thing, I didn't have the cash flow to get like the super nice ones. So also, I think there's a company called Meiji. I think they're Japanese. Those are also really good if you can't afford a Leica. But I actually was I think I'm one of the first people to buy this tool, but Durston just recently came out with a series of microscopes. I think they have 3 options. I got the middle one. It's great. I really like it, and it was right around the $1,000 price point, and it's really good. I like it. I'm able to do hand engraving and stone setting, and I can see everything, and my eyes don't hurt, and the optics are really nice. I wish I got the slightly more expensive one because the depth of field is not as good as it could be, but it does have the trinocular option, so if I want, I can put a camera and film what I'm doing. That's really cool. I appreciate Durston for getting like a semi-affordable option on the market. And if you can't afford a microscope, totally fine. Use optovisors. Like, there are so many jewelers who never touch a microscope, and I know them, and they are some of the best jewelers in the world. Hands down, you don't need a microscope. Me personally, I have really bad vision. A microscope helps me a lot. So that's why I got it. It was, and I'm being trained on it to some capacity. So that's why I invested in it, but you do not need it. You can hand engrave without it. You can stone set without it. You can do everything without it. You can file. I know some jewelers who do everything under the microscope, and like everything. And that's like their work is super precise, because if it looks great under the microscope, it's going to look unreal to the naked eye. So to each their own. Okay. Ball vise. I would love to upgrade to the GRS ball vise. I can't afford it. It's like another $1,000. So Verber has one, and I'm really hard on it. And to be fair, I've compared it to the GRS one. The GRS one is more precise. The alignment on it is better, or it's perfect rather, and the whole piece is machined. So that's really nice. However, I just needed something heavy to hold whatever I was working on. And if you're like in that boat, and you're not doing like super precise stuff, which I'm not there yet. I'm still working up to that. The Verver one is fine. It is heavy. I got it off of Amazon. It's dense, and it has all the same like grips and whatnot. And so I think it's fine. It's fine for right now. It's $100. You don't need to go spend $1,000 on the GRS one. As much as I would love to, you don't need to. You can get away without it. And honestly, I know some jewelers who have the Verver one for like 10 years, and it's great, and they love it, and that's awesome. The other thing that I think would be really helpful, especially when you're starting out, would be to get Thermalock. And Thermalock is like a putty that hardens after it's been heated. That will allow you to make a lot more grips than you think. And I have seen a jeweler, the plastic coating on one of his pliers completely like wore off after he used it for 15 years, and he just put Thermalock, and then he shaped it to be exactly like the plastic coating, and it works great. Thermalock is fantastic. It just allows you to hold everything in a really secure way, and you don't need a lot. A little bit will last you years. You do need a heat gun to heat it up, but that was something that came in like later in my training, and I was like, oh, if I had had this earlier on, this feels like a very simple solution to a problem I was having pretty consistently, and no one told me about it. So Thermalock, it's great. And then the next thing, and I think the thing that I'll probably end on, that most people have a hard time with in regards to setting up their shop, is fire. Getting a torch set up when you have never set up a torch before is so confusing. And you have to be really careful, right? Because if you're in an apartment and, there are fire code, regulations and stuff like that, you have to be really careful about not, blowing up your apartment. So that's an extreme example, but there's a lot of options. There's acetylene, there's natural gas, there's propane oxygen, and you have to find the one that works best for you. I don't know much about the other options, but I like using propane and oxygen. And then when I have to pour an ingot or cast or melt metal and stuff like that, I will also get a separate MAP gas from Home Depot to have a second torch. Basically, it operates as a second torch. It just gets hotter than my propane oxygen because the propane oxygen does not get hot enough to like cure a crucible, if you will. If you have never cured a crucible and you want to melt your own metal, there are YouTube videos for that. Definitely check it out. Please be careful. The temperature really gets up there. But MAP gas is a great substitute if you don't have a second torch or an acetylene torch to get hot enough to do that. So propane oxygen, the biggest thing is keeping the amount of propane that you have small. You do not want to use the propane tanks that attach to your grill. And I say that because there are so many insurance companies that will not cover a claim if something, God forbid, happens and you had that much propane in your house. This is true with like anything. This is true with like natural disasters. If you have propane of that amount in your house or in a studio and you didn't take it out, you are liable. They're no longer liable. And it's about the quantity. It's literally about the unit measure amount that is allowed to be safe. So what I would recommend is getting a disposable propane tank. You know, the little ones that you take camping, they're green and they're like, yay big. Get those because you can always file a claim with those. They're small enough that they're not the cause of damage. And those follow fire regulations and all of the like, all the hazards and everything. If you just keep it to the little disposable propane tanks, you're fine. And honestly, people are like, well, will it last a long time? Yeah, it actually does. Like, that is a lot of propane and it will be fine. I maybe swap mine out like once a month is maybe even a lot. Like, if I'm not in the shop every single day, it's once every 2 or 3 months. So that's a lot of propane. You're fine. And I've done things like I've, melted metal, like had it on for 20 minutes at a time. Like it's fine. So I have the little disposable ones with the disposable little caps that I believe both AutoFry and Rio sell for propane. And then I attach that to my Smith torch, which you will need. You can get Smith torches on Rio, AutoFry. I'm sure there's probably others like Contente or something like that sells them. You can also buy them at General Air. Now, when it comes to supplying the oxygen, I would be really careful to not get your regulator from General Air. I made this mistake and they have Welder's oxygen regulators. And I was like, I wanted to get the cheaper option and sometimes you get what you pay for. And I got the regulator from General Air and it was just too strong. And then like the gauge that I'm working in, when you're working in oxygen as a jeweler, you're like realistically not putting as much, I tend to put my oxygen between like 7 and 10, give or take. And this regulator, like the first notch on it was like 50. And I was like, okay, you can really overdo it really, really quickly, really easily. I know they're more expensive. Get your oxygen regulator from Rio or AutoFry. And then you can just buy a oxygen tank from General Air or any other gas supplier in your area and just attach that regulator to the oxygen tank. I wouldn't recommend buying the like preset oxygen and propane tanks from Rio, I think it is, who does that bundle, or AutoFry. Just because those like you need to swap the tanks. You need to be able to like especially, and also that's too much propane. Get the disposable ones. Too much propane. Someone also needs to teach you how to make sure that your gauges are enough, like are right between. So like I said, I like to keep my oxygen actually between 5 and 10. I normally put it at 7. And then in regards to like the little propane tanks with the Smith torches, the thing that I've had to figure out with trial and error was that the twist top of the little like disposable propane ones, those need to get opened all the way because the amount that you open it is equivalent to the pressure amount that you would get on an actual full-size regulator. So open it all the way when you use your propane and then keep your oxygen very minimal and you will have a very successful experience with your Smith torch. Okay. I talked a lot longer than I thought I would. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps someone because getting started was hands down the hardest thing. Now I've kind of built this cog and it goes over really well. But this is hard. This is a hard thing to like get into. And, you need money, you need resources, you need access, you need to know what the heck you're doing. So I'm always available. I just went through this and like I'm not an expert in any capacity, but I have a shop that I can work in and it's functional. So if I do that, I feel good. And if this helps one person set up their space and, that's a win. That's successful to me. So thank you so much for listening. I will catch you guys on the next episode. Have a great rest of your day.